Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Dirt Nap City, the podcast about interesting dead people. Did I get it right? Is that it?
That's it. It's been a minute, but yeah, you got it.
All right. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you.
My name is Alex. This is my friend Kelly, and we're talking about interesting people who are also deceased.
Yep. That's the two criteria: interesting and dead.
Yeah. So today, I'm not even gonna make you guess this because I don't know if you can. I don't think I have a clue that makes you guess that would make you guess it. But we're gonna talk about. Remember, we talked about Russian history before. It's kind of crazy, right? Russian.
Yeah.
Remember we talked about Rasputin.
Yeah.
Rasputin, and remember the thing about him was that he
smelled like a goat.
Well, he did smell like a goat. And then he was just kind of this outsider that kind of wormed his way into the inside, remember? And he was responsible for the Russian Revolution, and it was like this.
And he was hitting on the queen's or the czar's wife at the time.
Oh yeah, he was crazy, right? I mean, it was a good episode.
Listen to that
right?
episode. It is a good episode.
Well, Russia's always kind of got a guy like that a lot of countries have advisors. Russia's always got a guy, right? These guys always got this guy that's like that, just hovering off to the side of power. That's not like technically in charge, but somehow running everything.
Okay.
And Rasputin was like that. Remember? I mean, he had, like you said, the goat, and you can't kill him, and he had the beard, and because you can't really say you're the guy if you're in charge, like if you're technically in charge. But the guys that I'm talking about are like not in charge.
They're behind the
somehow
scenes.
They're in the orbit, and they're kind of end up running everything, whispering in the ear of the royal family, influencing decisions, and everybody else is looking around going, why is this guy in charge? Right? That was kind of how Rasputin was. But 100 years before Rasputin in Russia, there was another guy that was the same way.
Please tell me his name was Boris.
No, it wasn't Boris. But this guy was even kind of more powerful and even maybe harder to figure out. And I don't know. I mean, you might have heard of him. I've heard of him through like a figure of speech when you talk about something having a. Have you ever heard of a Potemkin Village? Have you ever heard that? Potemkin.
No. Is that like those little dolls that go inside each other?
No. The Russian nesting dolls?
I thought they were called Potemkins.
No. A Potemkin Village is basically, if you call something a Potemkin Village, that means that like it's all fake. That like you're just like there's a veneer and then nothing behind it. And it has to do with this guy's story, Grigory Potemkin.
Grigori, probably.
Sure.
Grigori Potemkin. That reminds me a little bit of Hot Fuzz. Did you ever see the movie Hot Fuzz?
No.
Where you've never seen Hot Fuzz?
No.
Oh my God, that is one of the best movies ever. Simon Pegg goes into this village. He's a cop from London, and he gets put into this little small thing, and then everything turns out to be fake. It's all a facade. So maybe there was some inspiration there from Potemkin.
Probably. I mean, that was the kind of the original. Grigori, probably. You're right. Grigori, Grigori.
Yeah,
Grigori Potemkin.
With a couple of weird symbols in it.
Maybe, yeah, for sure.
If you're Russian and your name is Grigori, hit us up, not at Dirt Nap City, and we'd love to hear how you spell your name.
Yeah, that'd be great. So we'll talk about Russian. Was that an example of what you say that I do?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Kelly says that he tries to swerve sometimes, and I just I hold the wheel steady.
Just hold it right there. 10 and 2, man. 10 and 2 at 50 miles an hour. Alex, the speed limit's 75. I don't care, man. I don't care.
All right. So I want to talk a little bit we'll do a lot of detours into Russian history because I think this stuff is all fascinating and so different than the way we live today. So this guy, Potemkin, he was born in 1739 in Smolensk, which was the Russian Empire. The Russian Empire was huge. Like it was
Yeah.
Russia, all of Russia today, plus a lot of Western Europe. And then he died in 1791 in the Ottoman Empire in Moldova. And so if you can picture like what Europe looks like now, everything was either part of Russia or the Russian Empire or the Ottoman Empire. Like it was just huge. And the Ottoman Empire would also like be the Middle East and Northern Africa. It was just all
Died with his feet up, right? In the Ottoman Empire.
Oh, I get that. Yeah. I actually don't know the connection with I was gonna look that up, the actual connection with the Ottoman, kind of like Afghans, like the blankets that our grandmothers used to
Right,
make.
right.
Like
Why are they called Afghans or Afghan
yeah.
hounds?
I picture when you go to Afghanistan, just everyone's got one of those blankets on.
A crocheted blanket.
That's why they call it Afghanistan.
It's so hot here.
The country was named after the blankets. Yeah, remember those? I'm sure your grandma has some, right?
We had Afghans. Yeah, yeah. My mom still calls a blanket an Afghan. Hand me that Afghan.
By the way, 100 years. 100 years.
My grandmother?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. My grandmother is all about now she grew up in India, so they might have a different word for it, but she was all about the Afghan.
Mm. Yeah. Okay, so
Grigori.
Our boy Potemkin, yeah. He was born the only son of 6 kids, and he was a nobleman.
Okay.
And so do you know what a nobleman is?
Well,
you hear about it a lot, right? You hear about people being noble.
Some sort of honorarium for somebody in royal, kind of in the like a duke or a duchess or a like a earl.
I think it was just under those people. So you picture this kind of Russian empire back then, and it was probably a lot of like wealth inequality, right?
Yeah.
And so noblemen were upper class or even really upper middle. There wasn't really a middle class, but even if you had something, you were probably in the 1%, Yeah. So it doesn't mean you're like extremely wealthy, but you're still like in the 1%. You own land and you have status that way.
Yeah.
And that when you were a nobleman, that means you have a pipeline into the military and into the government. You could be an officer in the military. You could get introduced to powerful people, even if you weren't just like upper middle class. Not a great, it's not like you live in a castle or anything, but most of the, they had basically 3 classes of people back then. You had noblemen, like I just described.
Yeah. Serfs.
And then you had serfs or peasants.
Yeah.
And then you just had like people that were like shopkeepers.
Now, that's the middle class of that time.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
But they were probably really poor. But you don't want to be a serf. That's what you don't want to be. I mean, surfing sounds fun. The Beach Boys made surfing sound fun.
But it's SERF, right?
Yeah, you don't want to be this kind of serf. So do you know what a serf is? It's like not quite a slave technically, but, pretty damn close to being a slave.
Are these like the untouchables in India?
I don't know.
You know what I'm talking about? The caste system.
Yeah. I don't know the comparison, but probably, right? I mean, you're tied to the land. So
literally. With Afghans, they use Afghans to tie you to the land.
So you're not owned by people, but you can't leave the land. You're kind of like tied to that. So the people don't own you. So if the land gets sold, then you stay with the land. You don't go with the people.
Okay.
But you don't make any money either.
No, it's just sustenance farming, right?
But you have to pay taxes. Mm-hmm. But you don't have to pay taxes with money. You pay taxes with your time and your labor.
You're right.
To the government who owns the land, maybe, or maybe a person owns the land. But so you're unpaid. You can't leave the land. And this was like 80 to 90% of the population back then.
This is like being an intern today.
Yeah, right. 80 to 90% of the population was in this situation, in this condition where you're just working to work and not making any money, serving these 1%ers. Yeah. Like I said, they weren't even that rich, but you want to be a nobleman more than you want to be a serf. That's for sure.
And the noblemen didn't even have flushing toilets or anything. I mean, they're still living a rough life.
Probably, yeah. I mean, this was the 18th century. So
Yeah.
yeah. So when he was 7, his dad died and he got sent to a gymnasium school in Moscow.
Okay. Yeah, that's a German thing too. Gymnasium.
Yeah. It's
It
really funny. It sounds like you go to school and all you're doing is doing
play
monkey bars all
dodgeball.
day. Yeah, exactly.
You're playing dodgeball all day.
You remember the weirdest part about our gym class was the parachute. Remember when they
Oh,
would
and you all
bust
get
out the
around.
parachute?
Actually, we had one of those at camp too. It was something you could do indoors that was sort of innovative, and everybody would pull it up, get air under it, and then you'd all run under it and hide like
Yeah.
a bunch of serfs.
Not super active though. Like it's
No,
always
no.
like a day off for the gym teacher. Our gym teacher was always hungover or currently like messed up high
Are
or
you
whatever.
talking about it in Michigan or in
Yeah,
Texas?
yeah, in Michigan. Yeah, he always just didn't want to be bothered with
Did-
whatever we were doing.
Did
So
you have
we'd
to
bust
do
that
square
parachute
dancing?
thing. Yes, we did.
You did
do
square dancing.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, because it was co-ed.
Yeah,
And so they didn't want to do a lot of rough and tumble stuff.
right.
Rope climbing, we do the
Yeah.
rope where you climb up, burn your hands,
You obviously went to a really good gymnasium.
Yeah, but a gymnasium school in Moscow in the 18th century was not like this. In fact, it was kind of the opposite of this. That's a Greek word that meant, I think, physical fitness and all that, but it also meant school. But by the time the Russians got to it in the 18th century, it was just about elite classical education.
So because Grigori was a nobleman, he went to gymnasium.
Yeah, so this would be you'd study Latin and Greek and philosophy and history and all that stuff and
useful
maybe
stuff.
Some rhetoric. Yeah, I mean, this was the best schools were called gymnasium schools, though. But I think that would have been my dream when I was 10 years old to say, "Hey, you're going to a gymnasium school," and all I do is play floor hockey.
Right. Dodgeball, floor hockey, and the parachute, and occasional square dancing. And I remember actually just one more thing, and this is something that you got to be at age to have. But the square dancing, all they had was a record player. Like the music was played on a record player. It wasn't. There was no tapes or a PA system. The guy literally, it was like one of those little all-in-one record players, and he'd put on the same square dancing music that he had for 40 years.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
and we would square dance.
Yeah. Sometimes the records would be, remember the kind of records that were actually like not even round. They were just, like from a book. You'd rip it out of a book.
Right.
It would be square.
Yeah.
And it would be made like flimsy, super flimsy.
Right.
Remember that? It was like, yeah.
I have one of those. I actually have one of those from a Bloom County book. And
a lot of times it came from books and they were like, like spoken word things.
It was Billy and the Boingers. And it was actually a pretty punk rock record.
Really?
It was what was Bill the Cat? I think Bill the Cat was in this band. Look that up sometime. Billy and the Boingers from Bloom County. I think there's a song called "I'm a Boinger." Anyway, back to Russia.
Back to Russian history. Yeah. So he enlisted in the Russian army when he was 11.
Why?
Because every noble children did this.
Oh, okay.
Everybody was expected to go into the military when they're 11. And I guess by the time you're 18, you're a full officer, in the military, instead of just taking, I'm not advocating that we do this, but I'm just saying, I guess if you have that system, then by the time people, have to go off and fight, you have a lot of like people with classical education that know this stuff pretty well, and they're still like 16, 17, 18 years old. Again, not a great system probably, but that was the way they did it. Well, he was the top student in his university, and he was really, things were going well for Potemkin, but then he went to St. Petersburg and everything kind of went sideways at that point.
Now, St. Petersburg, I'm
not Florida,
right? That became Moscow, right?
No, those are two different cities.
Okay, sorry.
He went to gymnasium school in Moscow.
St. Petersburg was the capital of Russia, and then Moscow became the capital.
Right. And at the time, man, St. Petersburg was the place. Like that's where everything was happening. Like by today's standards, it would have been like a combination of DC and Hollywood, because you
Okay.
had, it was where the imperial court was, right? So the emperor, and it would have, but also like a big social scene. And so when he was 18, he stopped going to class. He got distracted. He got expelled.
Oh, goodness.
But he wasn't just flaming out. Like, he was a smart guy. He wasn't just flaming out. He was figuring out that the real path to power wasn't in the classroom at all, but it was about like influence and who you knew and being seen at the right events and getting
So he
noticed by the right
started a
people.
YouTube channel.
Being charming and witty. Like, he was starting to see like, oh, these people in power, it's all about like influence, and it doesn't matter this if you know Latin and Greek. It's all about, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know, right?
Oh,
As
yeah.
we
I
would
knew that was
say
coming.
today, right?
Yeah,
Did you?
yeah, yeah.
But this is the stuff that Dale Carnegie figured out, 100 years later. He was kind of processing all this in real time. So he stopped trying to be the best student in the room and started trying to be the most important person in the room, right? And this is why I compared him to kind of Trump in the 80s, right? I mean, um, even when Trump was like bankrupt and broke and like a failed businessman and a basically nobody liked him and all that, he was still like worming his way into parties, and he was still
Yeah.
like being on David Letterman and going out there and like getting himself in the press. And he would
Guest
call,
star
and
on Different Strokes.
dude, he would call newspapers under a fake name and say, I've heard this guy is dating these models, and it would all be a lie, but it would just get himself out there, which ultimately got him to be the president of the United States. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah. It
the
was a path.
idea he figured out a long time ago that it wasn't about what you know at all. It was about like um, being in the right place and just like showing up and being at events, and people think you're important.
Promotion and self promotion and marketing.
Absolutely, which is probably a lot easier to do in the 1980s than it was in the 1780s, right?
True.
Um, so, and we're talking about like the 1740s, I guess. But so he was a mess. I mean, he was drinking heavily. I mean, St. Petersburg was it was Sin City, probably, right? He was gambling and losing, and he didn't have any money to gamble, but so he owed other people money, and so they have leverage over him, which you don't want. And he was getting into what let's call romantic entanglements, right? Lots of conquests. But he's in the game. He's socially in the game, and pretending you belong is like just adjacent to actually belonging, as we've learned from a lot of the people that we talk
Half
about.
the battle is just showing up.
I mean, you know who else? Who else was a little bit like that? We can't do an episode on him because he's still living, but Kanye West, when he first started out, would just show up at places that he wasn't invited to, and he would just like worm his way in and like be there. Yeah. And then when it finally got to the people that could make it happen, he had demos to play,
Or there would be a big news story about him worming his way in, which would get him more press. So,
right, exactly.
So if he got in, it was a success. If he didn't get in, it was still a success because he'd make a scene and get in the news.
Right. Have you ever seen that movie Catch Me If You Can?
Yeah.
Right. Frank Abagnale.
Yeah.
It was a great movie. Leonardo DiCaprio. And the difference between that guy and Potemkin was that guy was a stone cold liar and a fraud. I mean, Potemkin wasn't a fraud. Like, he actually was a smart guy. And he was a nobleman. So he did belong in these places. But he was just constantly the instinct was there that I have to be around all the action, in order to move up. In other words, he figured out that going to school was only going to get him so far. And he was already a smart guy, but it was all about people and influence. And that was the way to get to power. So here's a little crazy thing that in 1762, um, the head of Russia was Elizabeth of Russia,
Okay.
right? And she didn't have any direct descendants, and she died and made her nephew the ruler, I guess, before she died. He was like next in line. He was the next man in line, I guess. And he was Peter the Third. Okay,
Okay.
1762, Peter the Third. But he wasn't really Russian. Like, he was raised in Germany. I think we talked about this before in other episodes that, sometimes they would bring in royalty from other countries that weren't
Right.
really. I think we talked about this with Henry VIII. Some of those people, some of his
Yeah.
wives weren't even really British.
Charles III from Spain.
Exactly right. Yeah, that's a good example. He was German too, right?
Austrian, I think.
Oh yeah. Well, I should listen to my own episodes. So this guy was raised in Germany, Peter the Third. He didn't even really speak Russian that well, and he wasn't really a Russian. That didn't last long. His reign only lasted 6 months. There was a palace coup. So palace coup is like where it's not a total revolution. It's just where they kind of keep it in the same family, but they oust the guy that's in there. Sometimes there's even like, it's not always bloodless, a palace coup.
Yeah.
The funny part is though, and this one is they ousted him and his wife became in charge.
This is how Elizabeth got to be in charge?
No, Elizabeth died. Her nephew was Peter the Third, and his wife was Catherine the Second, known later as Catherine the Great.
Okay. And so she ended up taking over for Peter the Third.
Right, even though it was a coup, it was just his wife. But they weren't like in love or anything.
Right.
He died a week later.
It was more of a coup and not a coochie coup.
Right. Do you hear me say he died a week later?
He died a week later of what?
After
a broken heart?
He died. They say he died of a hemorrhoidal colic, which I think is slang for he got killed by his guards.
They made it the most embarrassing thing you could possibly die from.
There's no way he died of hemorrhoids a week after he got taken over. I'm sure the guards give him a shiv in the throat.
Can you even die from hemorrhoids?
A hemorrhoidal colic? I don't know.
That just sounds made up.
Yeah, totally. Or very coincidentally bad. So they weren't really, they didn't really have a love marriage or anything. It was a marriage of convenience. And now Catherine the Great was in charge.
Okay.
Now, by the way, when somebody is the Great, like Alexander the Great or Ivan the Terrible or anything, these aren't things that they go by at the time. I don't know if you knew that, but later on, like sometimes hundreds of years later, history ends up calling them the Great or whatever. Well, I mean, but she was just like Catherine the Second,
Charlemagne the God, right?
Well, that's self coined though.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But I don't think at the time, and I think if you spell the THA, it's or THEE, like Megan the Stallion. I think
Stallion. Yeah. Or Muhammad Ali, though, he called himself the greatest of all time.
Oh, that's true. Okay. So
when he was alive.
When it comes to royalty.
Okay.
Yeah. So she didn't go around like saying, "Hey, I'm Catherine the Great. Nice to meet you." She was just Catherine the Second.
Katie.
Now, one of the guys in the revolt involved in this palace coup was at this point Sergeant Potemkin.
Okay.
And there was a story about how she was reviewing the troops, and her hat was missing like a plume, and he took a plume out of his hat and handed it to her. And that really endeared her to him.
That's a move as old as time. Yeah, it really.
Well,
is.
I think back then, like the plume is like, if you're a queen or an empress without a plume, it's like, people aren't going to know who you are, respect you. And like, he recognized that and gave it to her right away. They're in the story, and this is probably apocryphal. I mean, who knows if this really happened? They say his horse wouldn't leave her side after that encounter. In that she thought that, I mean, there's something, they were very flirtatious to each other. And so she promoted him. And eventually he got promoted to a position called camera junker. I knew you would love that.
Well, what is that?
What do you think a camera junker is?
I mean, that's like an old Nikon or an old Polaroid, maybe.
Not camera. Camera.
Okay.
Kammer Junker. Camera junker.
Is that a guy that waits on the Queen?
I mean, the translation sounds even dirtier, but I mean, maybe camera junker sounds dirtier. I don't know which sounds dirtier, camera junker or gentleman of the bedchamber.
That's a camera junker.
Yeah, but neither one of those like have anything like sexual related to them. It's just like a junior court rank. It's an entry level position, like in the house.
So not like the ladies, the maid of the lady's maid, you know, the one that dresses her and does all that, or is it?
No, I think it's like a junior butler.
Okay, junior.
So
butler.
This may sound like a demotion because he
Right.
was a sergeant in the military,
Right, but now he's closer to power.
Exactly, he's in the orbit, right? He's
Yeah,
got his foot in the door. He doesn't have a seat at the table, but he's got his foot in the door.
He's got his camera in the junker.
And he was a really good mimic. Like that was a thing back then, to impress like the royalty. You'd be a mimic and he would go around and he did impressions of her. So he's walking around and he would do impressions of her to her and she loved it.
And he would do impressions of her to her and he loved it. She loved it. Like
right,
that.
Yeah. So that was he's using all these things that later on would be like part of, we would say he had game, right?
Yeah.
200 years later, we'd say he had game.
It started with the plume.
250 years, actually.
Yeah. I need to get a hat with a plume in it. That sounds like
well, if all you got to do, Kelly, is be in marching band. And you'll have a hat with a plume in it.
And they're going to take me at my age.
I've had tons of hats with plumes in them in my day.
Okay. But did you ever think to make that move? Like visiting dignitaries or anything? Like president of the university?
It is a very kind of Puss in Boots move, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Camera.
So so part of his job, then she sends him, so he's a mimic. I like the word mimic instead of impressionist. I think that's really funny. We should start calling Frank Caliendo a mimic. I just think mimic is funny because it makes it sound like you're doing it to bother somebody. Like
it makes you sound like you're doing it to bother somebody.
Right. Quit mimicking me. But she loved it.
Okay.
So she sends him to Sweden to send the word out about the coup, like let everybody know that she's in.
Yeah, she's large and in charge. Yeah.
Well, while he's in Sweden, he starts catting around and getting on his romantic entanglements again. And I don't think that he and Catherine were lovers at this point. They were probably flirtatious. He was probably one of her favorites, but I don't think he had gone there yet. But when he got to Sweden, he was all about, going around,
I mean, it's Sweden, right?
And he's a flirtatious dude.
When in Sweden?
And then something happens with his eye. And nobody really knows. There's a lot of, some people say he got hit with a tennis ball. Some people say
oldest excuse in the book, by the way. What happened to your eye? Tennis ball.
Some people say it was like he got in a duel with somebody and messed up his eye.
Yeah, that sounds better.
Some people say he did it himself, but he fell into this depression because he kind of withdrew from society at that point and became even a hermit. And even at one point got super religious. So he kind of withdrew from everything. And he kind of just kind of withdraws. So remember, this is kind of in his pattern before. He was going to a great school and then he went to St. Petersburg and kind of messed it up. And then he gets into to be a camera junker, and then he goes to Sweden and kind of messes it up. So
he gets into the military, and then he changes. It sounded like he couldn't stay in one place for very long.
Well, maybe that's it, or maybe he just keeps retooling himself. I think in his history, we'll say that he just keeps reinventing himself.
Maybe that's how he hurt his eye, was retooling himself.
He gets back to the. I get that. Yeah, that's good.
It happens.
So he goes back to St. Petersburg, and when he gets back, like people, he was a hermit. He hadn't been around in a while, and people started teasing him. They called him Cyclops. Isn't that mean?
Oh, that is mean. I am camera junker, not Cyclops.
But he got back in her orbit. He got back in Catherine's orbit, and they became lovers.
Did he get a glass eye or something?
I don't think so. I don't think if he did, they don't think people would be calling him Cyclops. Did they have glass eyes back then?
Sure. I think that's all they had back then. I mean, you didn't have glasses, so if your vision was blurry, they just pop one out and put a glass one in for you.
I think he just had a giant hole where his eye was.
Oh, ooh, that's not good.
Yeah, well, I mean, tennis balls, you don't mess around with tennis balls. Maybe he had a patch.
Yeah. More
he
pirate.
Probably did.
Yeah.
He probably did.
That was what the nobleman would do.
That's probably
yeah. You were a serf, you just had a giant hole. But if you were a nobleman, you could afford a patch. A nice plumy patch.
Probably made out of fur, though.
Yeah. Furry plumy patch.
So they became lovers. 1774, 1775 area. And some say they even might have gotten married secretly. But he's back in business. He's back in business. I was talking to you about the Ottoman Empire before.
Oh, yeah. Where everybody has their feet up.
So the Ottoman Empire is basically like Turkey, the Balkans, the Middle East, North Africa. But for this story, the part of the Ottoman Empire that we care about is the part that's in the news a lot today, Crimea.
Oh, yeah.
Is in southern Ukraine, right around the Black Sea. And Russia wanted Crimea because it was actually not cold in Crimea. It's actually a warm place.
Okay.
And all the ports that Russia had were in cold parts. And you don't want a port that's going to freeze over, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So Crimea, having a port in Crimea became like a real, like it's to this day, it's why they, it's one of the reasons they fight over Crimea is
it's like a Swiss bank account, a port, a bank account in Switzerland, a port in Crimea.
Yeah. It's just a thing you want. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so in 1783, there's a war between Russia and Ottoman Empire, and Russia won this war, and by 1783, Russia annexes Crimea. So Crimea becomes a part of Russia, and Potemkin was behind this whole thing. Like, it was his idea. Militarily, he was running the show. But then, like, operationally, like, okay, this is part of Russia now. You're, like, in charge of Crimea. And by this time, by 1783, they weren't romantic anymore. But in a way, they were somehow even closer because they had trust.
Yeah, it's kind of like Henry VIII with his German wife, the one that he didn't kill, right? Afterward, they became friends, and she was like an advisor to him, and all that stuff. Was that
Catherine of Aragon?
No, that was his first one. I forget this one's name, but yeah.
We got to see six again.
That happens in the royals sometimes. She was the one that was ugly and smelled bad,
right?
And he called her sister.
Oh yeah, I don't remember which one that was. We'll have to go re-listen to that. So like I said, in a way, because they're not romantic anymore, they probably not romantic anymore because he had a hideous, hole in his head.
Tennis ball accident.
But they trust each other, and which was like almost an even stronger bond. And she would have him run these huge projects like Crimea, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So in 1787, she goes to Crimea. She takes a tour of Crimea. And Crimea, I don't think he had done a great job with it, but he wants her to think he did a great job. So he builds these fake villages.
Oh, this is the payoff we're getting to here. Okay.
The Potemkin Village.
Okay.
He builds these fake villages and has all these peasants like dress up as like their life is pretty good. And he sets up people, these peasants on the side of the street, like cheering her on as she, rolls down the road, and, we love you, Catherine. And
you're
basically
great.
Stages prosperity, right? Stages this like place that's doing great to show that Crimea was a smart investment, that it was a good idea to have this place. But the whole thing is kind of fake. Now, I think it's been a little overplayed in history about how fake. I mean, there's accounts that like he would have these, like basically a movie set. Like he would have these
Yeah.
houses on wheels, and then they would roll them, and then he would just be ahead of her, and then she would pass it, and he would roll it back to another place.
Painted a different color.
She would seem like the same village everywhere she went, and the same people.
Right.
It does kind of remind me of like hiring extras in a movie set, and the whole thing was fake.
Like an old Western set.
I'm not sure the degree to which he really pulled all that off. History is a little bit mixed, but I love the idea that it was like a 20th century movie set.
That's awesome.
I'm not sure they had all the resources to do that. And probably back then, it probably didn't take much to fake somebody out.
No, it sure didn't.
Know? And peasants are peasants. They're going to do what you tell them to do. You give them some nice clothes and probably then take them away after.
Oh, of course.
But by the late 1780s, Potemkin is one of the most powerful people in the Russian Empire. But then war breaks out again with the Ottomans. Like that was just an ongoing thing. And even today, like, I mean, the Ukraine-Russia war has a flavor of the Russian Ottoman Empire type of stuff. And I mean, if you're a Russian scholar, which I am decidedly not, I'm sure that the context for all that makes a lot more sense when you know about these Ottoman wars. So now he's in charge, but he's kind of lost a step, and in 1791 he is he's sick, and he pulls over his carriage and just
hemorrhoids.
No, he just pulls over his carriage and dies very unceremoniously. Like you think about all the stuff this guy was into, you'd think he could have gotten shot, he could have gotten VD. He could have gotten a number of different things, but he just kind of just whimpered out. He just kind of lost his steam.
How old was he?
So this was 1791. He was born in 1939. So
1739. So
like
he was pretty old
50
for the time.
52.
I mean, for the time, that was probably in Russia. That was probably at the top end of the age.
Sure, but younger than we are now.
Well, yeah, but we're Gen X.
Old. Yeah, that's true. He ran in the same circles as Benjamin Franklin, but they never met. I think Benjamin Franklin did meet Catherine the Great.
Okay.
But I think Potemkin was out that day. They didn't ever.
He was playing tennis.
There's no official record that they ever met, but they did run in those same noble circles,
Yeah.
So there's a chance they could have crossed paths, and he almost overlapped with Napoleon. Like he was just coming. I think Napoleon was born I think Napoleon was just coming into power as Potemkin's dying.
Okay.
So they almost overlapped. He never met any of these other guys. He was 100 years before Rasputin.
Yeah.
But he never met like Dick Clark or anybody. I'm always trying to figure out who knew who at the time.
Right. He was never on American Bandstand.
No, he was. But the closest was like the founding fathers. He was around those contemporary of those guys.
Yeah.
An ocean away, a couple oceans away. I guess it's still an ocean away, just on the other side.
Yeah.
But I think when you hear about people like trying to pull a ruse or like an elaborate stunt that somebody plays, and you see a lot of reality shows are based on this. Yeah.
Have you seen this show called The Jury or Jury Duty?
I haven't, but same kind of idea, right?
Yeah.
Just an elaborate ruse. A lot of Nathan Fielder stuff is based on this kind of fakeness, but even the idea of having movie sets, right, is just kind of fakeness.
Sure.
But all that, when you hear somebody say, well, this is just a Potemkin village, it doesn't even have to be about like a set or buildings. But if somebody says, hey, we got a podcast coming out, you should check it out. And somebody goes, no, that's just a Potemkin village. It might mean that it's just like one episode, but we don't have anything behind that. Like, it's our strongest stuff up front. I've worked for companies before where all we have is a demo.
Well, Enron. Enron, right?
I didn't work for them, but
I'm saying that was a Potemkin village.
absolutely, like
Bernie Madoff.
all we have is like our prototype, and if you ask us to make it, we're gonna maybe not figure it out. Bernie Madoff, Elizabeth Holmes, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That was a total Potemkin village.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
So if you ever hear that phrase,
I'm going to be on the lookout. I'm going to use that phrase. Use that phrase actually.
And then if somebody says, "What's that?" Give them a link to our episode.
Just going to hand them a sticker. Right on. Well, hey man, thank you. That was interesting.
Grigori Potemkin.
Frost with the mud on his boots. Sharp-eyed boy, hungry for more, he learned how to cut through the smoke. At the court gates he bowed, but he did not stay small. One hand on the sword, one hand on the throne's cold wall. Whisper by whisper he climbed the stone stairs, through powder rooms and candlelit stairs. Catherine saw fire where others saw risk, and Grigori stood tall like a blade in her fist. Potemkin, Potemkin, ride on, ride on. Potemkin, Potemkin, your name rolls on. Build it high, build it bright, make the old world stare. Potemkin, Potemkin, you were already there. He drew maps in the dust and made borders speak, set fleets on the sea and made empires feel weak. With a glance and a grin he could bend the room. Gold on his cuffs and a storm in his loom. He was friend, he was shield, he was threat, he was crown. When he stepped into war, whole provinces bowed down. Whisper by whisper the rumors flew fast, that he rose too high and would never hold fast. But Catherine kept him close to her flame, and the halls of the north knew the reach of his name. Potemkin, Potemkin, ride on, ride on. Potemkin, Potemkin, your name rolls on. Build it high, build it bright, make the old world stare. Potemkin, Potemkin, you were already there. Then came the village with painted fronts, fresh fences, fresh roofs, and the brass and the sun a smile. For the empress, a village of show, all order and glory in a perfect row. The peasants, the banners, the pageant, the gleam, a kingdom of splendor or a grander dream. Was it fraud, was it faith, was it love dressed in gold? Was it power made warm by a hand to hold? Catherine looked on and she knew the game. A realm can be real and still wear a name. Potemkin,